Okay, so we are so excited to welcome everyone to one of the concurrent sessions today for Admitted Students Week. Today we're going to be talking about the Race and Opportunity Lab, which is part of the Brown School at Washington University here in St. Louis. I'll just do a brief introduction of the Race and Opportunity Lab and then turn it over to our presenters. So the mission of the Race and Opportunity Lab is to examine race, opportunity, and social mobility with an emphasis on informing policies, interventions, and intra-professional practice. And I will go ahead and turn over to Mike Jones.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Jones. I use he, him pronouns. I serve as the Associate Director for Community Science within the Race and Opportunity Lab, where we work under the leadership of Dr. Sean Joe, who is our Principal Director and fearless leader in all the work that we are engaged in within the St. Louis region to help serve Black boys and young men between the ages of 12 and 29. So we're excited that you're here to be able to join us today to learn a little bit more about our research lab and research in general. You know, at times that we have a spectrum of students who may be interested in research, may be interested in going into doctoral work, but we also may have students who are interested in practice and may be a little intimidated by research in some sense. But we're here to talk a little bit about our research lab and the many things that we are contributing to the grand scheme of research. We're excited that each of you are able to join us. I'll put my contact information in the chat as well as leave it with Shayna. And so if you may be watching this on YouTube land, you know how to contact us within the Race and Opportunity Lab. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sean Joe.
All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right, good to see some faces and places. Give me a second as I try to bring up this very brief slide deck, and Mike let me know, or Shayna let me know if this is up. I usually have to do this twice. I don't know why. My computer is special, but I treat it that way. All right, so as Michael mentioned, my name is Dr. Sean Joe. I'm the Benjamin Youngdahl Professor here at the Brown School and the founder and principal director of the Race and Opportunity Lab. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we do, and then I'm hoping that we can engage in a conversation that will help you to figure out whether or not the lab might be a good space for you regarding field placement and as part of your learning and development, or as a research opportunity for you to be able to learn more research skills as you're thinking about more advanced degrees. So again, we thank you for joining us today and this opportunity to share that with you. A little background about me. I'm not going to spend here a lot of time here. I'm often known for work around suicidal behaviors among Black Americans and their psychiatric health and the access to mental health service use and developing family-based intervention strategies. But I founded the lab when I came here to St. Louis, centered around maybe two primary things. One, I wanted to do something significant in this phase of my career that focused on how do you address issues of inequality in a way that you don't come back 40 years to see the same thing in the same places and the same players. I've done enough work that I don't need, my credibility and what I'm able to do, I've reached the highest levels to be able to come to a place like WashU. But I was really, really just tired of universities and university communities where we don't move these issues. We do important work, but not transformative work. So, and then two, I'm particularly focused on the role of Black boys and young men for a variety of both personal as well as the data tells me it's important to focus on that population because I do see them as the key to bringing about transformation, particularly in certain urban and rural communities where you have diverse groups of people or large numbers of those of African descent. And then it was important to interrogate the idea of what do we mean by race and do some intellectual work to make sure that we have a good understanding of what that term means and then how do we address it, particularly how does it continue to contribute to the same sort of systems and thinking that we're trying to eradicate. So the lab looks at this intersection between the concepts of race, opportunity, and particularly social mobility with a focused on either informing policies or interventions or what we call intra-professional practice centered around reducing inequality as young people go from adolescents to young adults. We often have master's students, doc students, postdocs, and even staff who is affiliated because they're part of WashU or outside of WashU as part of what we're doing. The first, as you can see here, the lab really covers a lot. So there's a lot of work around suicide and suicide-related research that we're doing. Publications are part of being in any lab, developing reports and manuscripts. Then my journal club, which is another intellectual space where we really spend time reading closely. What do we mean by the history of the word race? What do we mean by that? What has it developed into? Really trying to study and understand what do we mean by race in our science. And the central project, which I'll give, which is our population-based community science, community-driven science intervention called Homegrown STL. And I want to tell you a lot about that because that's the cornerstone of what we do in lab. Homegrown is centered around the idea of advancing equity by improving the outcomes, particularly the social mobility outcomes for Black boys and young men. Our vision is really simple. We say St. Louis as a region, imagine that you can have the #1 place in the country for Black boys to grow up, #1 place in the country for Black males to go to college, the #1 city with the healthiest Black males, etc. So if we want to take this sort of approach, then we can be directly confronting the inequality that's been around the city and county of St. Louis for a long time, way before I got here. The data tells us that just in a 10-mile radius, there's an 18-year gap in life expectancy between one zip code and another, and usually between the zip codes where it's predominantly white and predominantly Black. So in North St. Louis, where predominantly Blacks live, not the only place, the life expectancies are 67 years on average. In Clayton, which is 10 miles away, it's about 85 years. What's accounting for that inequality and how do we address that? So these things we've been attempting to do. St. Louis is ranked often in terms of economic mobility very low relative to other areas that are other major metropolitan areas. So we're ranking very low in the idea that one generation could be better off than the next generation. Again, this is not unique to St. Louis, but we have never, ever demonstrated our ability to change that outcomes for a population of African descent. And that's what we're trying to do. And this idea that this is the role, this is the next phase of what our science must be able to help us do and think through. And not just science alone, but we must use good data to help us think through this. So I'll give you a little bit of preview of what this initiative is about.
For any lock to work, you must use the right key. And to unlock the potential for a future different from our past, there are several keys that lead to the best version of the St. Louis region. At Homegrown St. Louis, we call these keys the transformative framework for success. Within the framework, each of these elements are brought together and organized to create a scalable solution for advancing equity within our region. Currently, there is nearly a 2-to-1 gap in wages between Black and white men in St. Louis, meaning if the average annual income for white men is $30,000, the average annual income for a Black man is $15,000. This has been the case in our city for the last 40 years, and the gap continues to widen. The unfortunate reality is that right now we are not organized in a way that will help us overcome this inequity. By creating a space to organize and collaborate, we can align our efforts as a community and make progress towards the goal of improving the social and economic mobility of young Black men. With our Homegrown Life Coach program as the primary method of providing immediate care and support for Black boys and young men between the ages of 12 and 29, things are moving in the right direction. But there is a lot more that goes into organizing our community for the outcomes we want to see. Let's take a look at the other keys to success within the Homegrown St. Louis transformative framework. The ability to collect information and make data-driven decisions, answering questions like who is our audience, how many people do we need to reach, and what are the indicators of success. This is where it all begins. Then the crafting of a population-level vision, which in our case is the intentional focus on the 60,000 Black boys and young men throughout the St. Louis region. To help us make progress towards achieving our vision, effective leadership is critical. These are the individuals who focus our resources and efforts. They make up our regional steering committee, administrative core team, and the existing work groups currently serving the community. For Homegrown St. Louis, Washington University is our institutional anchor that adds resources, credibility, access to research, and a platform to build a larger case for regional support. Radical collaboration between other community-based organizations in the form of our Preferred Provider Network, or PPN. Technology designed to support coordinated care tailored to each individual, and other resources provided to members via the St. Louis Community Information Exchange. And finally, a clear plan for addressing future needs, setting standards for care, and implementing systems change. By combining each of these elements, we can unlock the true potential for the St. Louis region, opening economic doors that were once closed. A region where we cut through inequality, giving Black boys and young men the ability to consistently reach their highest potential and thrive. At Homegrown, we are starting in St. Louis and laying the path for how other communities can do this work. But we need your help. Invest in a brighter future for our region and join our effort to organize the community and improve the social and economic mobility of Black male youth.
So that gives you a sense of what the Homegrown Initiative is centered on. And again, as you heard, it's a population level strategy. So we want the impact to be at a population level, not just a couple hundred, but we want to see a transformative level of change. How does a school, we're not one of the few, we're the only ones that saying that this is what an institution should stand up to do. That if we're going to be in St. Louis, which we are a part of, and for St. Louis, and working with St. Louis, then the benefits must be seen at a transformational level. It's no longer acceptable just to do what has been keeping us in this current status, or what we call status quo. But let's move forward, and we have the capacity to do that. But you have to build that capacity. So we're working with our Homegrown program, which is very complex, multi-phase, multi-stages. There's a lot of opportunities for field placements, for many of our students to get involved at a significant level where we're interacting at the highest level with St. Louis community to do this level of thinking and planning and intervention work and strategic capacity building. So it's multi-layered. This is a 20-year approach that in order to get us on the right track, to put Black boys and young men on the track to healing, growth, and thriving. In addition to that sort of macro level work, we also, as you heard in the video, the Homegrown Life Coaching Intervention approach I'm advancing is centered now on how do you provide some direct kind of practice, support, and care for Black boys and young men over time. And I just want to talk a little bit about that. Then I'll open up the floors for your questions, and we can discuss things from there. So our life coaching approach is centered in this way. I'm going to show you another small video.
Imagine a St. Louis region where every student has access to the same elite resources and economic opportunities as its most wealthy citizens. A region where we cut through inequality across school districts, giving every Black male student the ability to consistently reach their highest potential and thrive. By pairing each student with a homegrown life coach, providing intensive case management and personalized care for up to 17 years, we can increase access to the right resources at the right time to help them heal and live their best possible lives. Homegrown life coaches receive ongoing training to support the social, economic, and health needs of each student over time. Their role is to work with youth and families, connecting them to the elite resources and making rapid referrals to the community-based organizations committed to providing the highest quality of care for our children. Improving the economic and social mobility of 60,000 Black boys and young men is not a small task. However, with our network of preferred providers, the relentless outreach, engagement, and follow-up from our homegrown life coaches, and you as a champion for change, we can realize the vision of a thriving St. Louis region that is the best version of itself.
So again, and Mike and the team, we're working to launch this in school districts around the city and county, working with community organizations that serve the St. Louis community as well, and making sure these life coaches are there to support Black boys and young men. a lot of work is going on into this lab, and as you can see, we've been doing this for a while. And so in terms of prospective roles, we have research assistant opportunities for someone who wants to have hands-on research training. We're building out our community science fellowship, where we will have field placements for what we call coordinators, and we have 7 major pillars of work that we're doing that's centered around working with organizations that serve Black boys and young men. One of those pillars, for example, is we have some priority pillars where we're really saying, how do we solve this process, this experience where Black boys and young men are not getting the right training, connecting to the best employment opportunities or the right entrepreneurial opportunities. We will demonstrate how does a region do that when you have a multi-ethnic region riddled with historic and current drivers of inequality. We're going to demonstrate how does a region does that. So these are some of the things we're thinking about. We have priorities, but again, we can get into the more specifics based on your questions. So I'm hoping this is a good enough introduction, and the floor is now open. Now I should stop sharing this, and then either Mike Jones or myself will be able to answer some of your questions. How do we move forward? Are you facilitating, Mike Jones, or am?
Sure. So at this point, we were opening it up to the group to address some questions, if there are any available. And I see we've had a few guests who've come in and out of the space, but see Jane, and am I pronouncing it correct? Zeed.
And
Zide, welcome, both of you, welcome to the space. Thank you for attending. If we can make this as conversational as possible, while we have Dr. Joe's time, are there any questions that you have about the presentation or about opportunities with the lab? We'll turn it over to you at this time so we can address those.
Yeah, I think that I'm trying to get a sense of like what the day-to-day would look like for a research assistant, like where exactly, like what kind of research, I guess, are y'all excited about that will start like this summer, this fall, or like what would we be at the center of, I guess, is my question, if that makes sense. That's kind of big.
No, Jane, you're fine. So again, all of you, congratulations to being admitted to the Brown School. Again, as you know, it's an outstanding school of social work and public health and social policy in this country. So it all begins with a conversation about what problem or population brought you into the field, and where do you see yourself going in the next couple of years? Because then I want to match that with what we're doing. We do work right now, whether it's on suicide, doing deep analysis to make sure we understand the trends in suicidal behavior or the mental health service needs of Black youth. Again, what you're learning in there is how to be engaged in that sort of work, whether it's from just lit review to a sophisticated analysis. All that's part of that sort of process. Or we're going to look at data to make sure that we make data-driven decisions. So we look at the population, we look at the experience of the population, we analyze census data, anything that helps us to do strategic planning so that we make informed decisions. So it's always about analysis is a good part of what we do. Or if I'm doing an intervention trial like I'm doing with Dr. Jones right now and the team, we have a randomized controlled trial that's funded by the National Institutes of Health, and we're doing that level of work as well. So it varies, depends. I try to look at students' interests and then figure out how best to teach them according to that interest. At the same time, there's space for me to engage with career. I would not be your advisor in most cases, but I still do career development because I've been in this field for quite some time and know what schools of social work do and can do and how we can best support you. I will say this to you, whether you're my student or you're working in a lab or not. Everyone's coming here to master something, so I hope you're committed to that because that's what I try to be committed to. Because not everyone wants to master something in their master's program. I find that kind of interesting. But in addition, with the homegrown initiative, it's very layered. For instance, we're trying to solve multiple problems at the same time. as a community. One of the problems, for instance, we're trying to solve black males' access to a good mentoring relationship. Now, how do you do that at a population level? So you have to learn both micro and macro level skills to do that. And that training in terms of helping us be a coordinator, I put people into positions for which they will have to grow. And then we're working with the region's organizations, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, bringing them into an organizing table that we then say, how do we solve these problems together? The problems that we're trying to solve is that they are designed to help to put a positive mentoring relationship in the lives of those who seek it, but they don't have enough capacity, size, and scale. Then they lack information because, again, to identify the right mentors or to train train those mentors to work effectively with the mentees. On a day-to-day, we're solving problems, and people are everyone in the lab has a role to play in helping us do part of that work. And when everything requires an all hands on deck, we all come together when we're doing our large summit to make sure we do our strategic planning as part of this process, and everybody gets involved. So from data collection to data analysis to intervention trials, okay? But one thing that's not going to happen in the Race and Opportunity Lab, we don't do any work that has nothing to do with the mission or vision. We don't do work just to be busy. And if you're very interested in saying, how do you solve these complex issues that's been plaguing not just St. Louis, but this country as a whole, you'll begin to get some insight on how do we do that. And in there, you got a lot of skill sets, program evaluation, all these sort of things comes out because you have to be able to have multiple things in your toolkit. And then we want to make sure that you're reading and understanding these things as we're doing them. So Jane, I gave you a lot in that response, and I'm hoping I'm answering some of the questions for others.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. That's really exciting to hear. I love how passionate you are. It seems like it's like you said, like some people that are in a master's program don't care to master things. Well, yeah, and some people that are teaching don't seem to care to teach. But yeah, I'm really excited by what you had to say. Thank you.
Sure. Other comments or questions? Well, I could take a second to learn. Again, you took the time to come in here. Can you tell me a little bit about each one of you and what you're interested in doing? Why the Brown School and what you hope to get out of this experience?
Okay, I guess I can go first. I'm really excited about the Brown School because of the community work y'all do. Like, that's what I'm really excited about. It's not like WashU and then St. Louis, but y'all are really trying to work within the community that you are in, and I think that's really exciting. And I'm planning to do an MSW with a concentration in mental health. So that's really, I think a lot of my interest in the Race and Opportunity Lab comes from trying to understand the specific barriers that, you know, in like this case, like Black males face when they're trying to get to mental health care, and like maybe also, oh, sorry, I got distracted because someone else came in. Yeah, like where those barriers are and like what work needs to be done to help in that way is what I'm really interested in.
Sure. And when you learn about those sort of things, it's translatable to other populations because transportation barriers are transportation barriers, no matter which ethnic group it impacts or, you know, or gender group. But okay, good to meet you. Audrey, how are you, Ms. Plump?
I'm great, Dr. Joe, your presentation, and thank you, Mike Jones, as well. It is awesome. I appreciate learning so much about what you all do, and it is much needed. And I wish I had have known or had my hands on some of these opportunities when I was raising my boys. So thank you again.
Thank you. And your interest in Brown, what are you hoping to do?
Well, I'm part of the Brown community, Dr. Joe.
Okay, I'm not sorry about that. I'm the one who
That's okay.
lost here. All right, and who's next? Am I seeing everybody, Michael? I can't see everyone.
We have one
Hi.
more. There's,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. So I am interested in macro level work related to mental health, interested in working with Black populations. And I'm from New York, and I have worked in organizing advocacy. So I'm still interested in applying that macro level experience, but to the mental health field. So that's why I'm interested in the Brown School.
All right. Who did you work with in New York?
I work remotely right now. So I'm based in DC, but I'm still in New York. I work with People for the American Way
Mm-hmm.
with voter mobilization for Black voters specifically.
Yeah, I should know some names. I can't even think about. Oh, I'm having that sort of senior moment.
With
But
People for
yeah, yeah. But I can't remember.
Diallo?
I know that name, but it's not the person I'm thinking about.
No, okay.
So, but nonetheless, welcome. And if you listen, I think you did listen carefully that I'm bringing in a combination of skills that's not often applied in science. And one of them is community organizing. So, and there's a science to that too. So, as I think if you doing voter registration and get out, you clearly understand that. Well, thank you. I appreciate both of you taking time to share and introduce what you're doing and what you're seeking to get an experience with. So, Mike Jones is back to you.
Sure. So in closing, both Dr. Joe and I left our emails in the chat, and I do want to let you know about some upcoming project coordinators that we're in the process of recruiting for in the fall across our pillar work. So Dr. Joe mentioned our pillar work, and we are actively recruiting for individuals who are interested in foundation and concentration practicum with our health pillar, as well as our personal safety pillar, where we focus on personal safety of Black males. PPN organization, which you saw about on the video, and our website and social media production. And so if that's an interest of yours, if you're interested in website and social media or communications with that regard, we are actively recruiting for those roles in the fall. And so the goal is to really have some project coordinators across all 7 of our pillars to help students talk about what Dr. Joe just said, being able to combine the science with the community organizing. And that's a unique piece. You usually get one side, someone who wants to just focus on the data. And we do have that opportunity. So if you want to just focus on data analysis, we do have that opportunity. But the unique piece about our lab is that we combine the community with the science. And so you have the opportunity, like he said, to interface with community partners and interact with partners around St. Louis. And St. Louis is a unique city. Unlike New York or DC, most of our public servants are arm's length away. So it's not uncommon for you to have coffee or see Mayor Tashara Jones on campus engaging with our WashU population. And Dr. Joe, as well as other members of our lab, are very heavily involved within the community. And so this is a cool place to be, is what I'm saying. And so if you're interested in staying in contact with us, I would encourage you to do that. Our emails are listed below, or you can look us up on the Race and Opportunity Lab. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. It was good to meet y'all.
Awesome. Well, I'll
Yeah.
just close us out here. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Mike and Dr. Joe, for telling us all about the work that you're doing in the community. It's really, really fascinating, really amazing. And I would encourage students, I mean, they're recruiting, they're hiring, so reach out to them. Like, you can be part of this work too. This is the last session that we have for Admitted Students Week today. Tomorrow's our second to last day. We have sessions at 9, 11, 12, and 1. All of that information is on our website. Mike is actually coming back tomorrow to facilitate a 1 o'clock session with us about St. Louis community engagement. So he'll be talking with our panel more about the ways that the Brown School and WashU are engaging in the St. Louis community. So I would invite you guys to come back and attend that with us, and then go on a tour with us tomorrow morning, listen to a student panel, lots of good opportunities. So thanks again for joining us. It was nice to see everyone's faces.